And my daughter just isn't demonstrating the same enthusiasm that her older brother does. And you try to suss out like the nature nurture question, because I feel like I'm doing the same inputs,
Right.
but I'm getting different results, and it leads you to wonder. It's a very small sample size, but when I talk to other parents, like parents who are parenting right now, young kids, I just keep encountering other dads who are having the same experience, and it really leaves you to wonder, sort of like what sort of like cultural influences are going on there, where it's like the enthusiasms oftentimes among young girls are not as high as the enthusiasms among boys, and it's hard to unpack.
Is it cultural?
I don't know. It's hard to unpack everything.
Yeah, that's my question. Is like,
I'll never, I don't know.
Age. How old's your kids?
Well, the two I'm talking about are 8 and 5.
Yeah, man, I don't know how much culture plays a part in
I know.
that. I really think that it's obviously in my small sample group, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old for the youngest kids. The 8-year-old fucking loves it. They're both girls. The 10-year-old, she's like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, if I try to wake her up, take her fishing, she'd be like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm going back to sleep.
I'm sure there are parents out there who, I haven't met them yet. Maybe they're out there where they have like a boy and a girl, and the girl's super fired up and the boy's not. Maybe it happens.
I guarantee it. There's Jamie and I were just talking about this yesterday because I was watching this video of these. I want to try to put this in a respectful way. I think and I'm sure you're aware of this. There's people that are in the hunting world, the outdoor industry, that I think are in it because it's a good avenue to get attention if you're like a hot chick.
Yeah.
If you're a hot chick and you wear pink and you go out and shoot things, you take all these grip and grins with deer and like this, you're gonna get a lot of likes.
Yeah, because it's like imagine the male perspective on it.
Yeah,
is like, here's the woman who has everything.
Exactly.
And she likes to hunt.
Yeah, she's hot and she likes to hunt, and there's quite a few of them. And I was telling Jamie, it's a weird world because part of me, I don't want to be a sexist. I don't want to look at these girls and I don't look at a guy who hunts and who wants to be a part of the outdoor industry and go, oh, this guy is just doing this because he thinks this is his avenue for fame and success. I think, well, here's a guy who really likes to hunt and he realizes there's people like Steve Rinella and John Dudley out there and these famous hunters. Man, I want to be a famous hunter. How do I do it? How do I go? Well, I'm going to just start taking Instagram pictures and say a lot of the same shit that they say and sort of, put myself into the cultural norm. I don't think like that with girls.
You're like, you just want to have men like you.
Not all of them. Not all of them. A lot of them I think are super legit. A lot of them are, but there's unquestionably this added element in that world. And let's be super generous and say it's only 10% of them. Mm-hmm. But that 10%, I'm like, I smell a rat.
I'm not unaware of what you're talking about.
I'm sure you're not.
No, I noticed it. Yeah.
It's weird.
I even had like I remember it was, there's kind of like a sex pot kind of huntress scene.
Oh yeah. Super made up, full war paint, fake eyelashes, hot as fuck, skin tight clothes, out there shooting shit, taking pictures. Yeah, it's weird. And then you go to their Instagram page. And it's like there's pictures of that, and then there's a lot of pictures with their butt up in the air where they're doing some strange exercise.
Getting ready for bow season.
Yeah, accentuating their butt. Like, that's weird. I don't do any of those exercises.
I would really like to. I know. I would really like because I'm going to continue leaning on my. I'm going to continue leaning on my daughter because I would really like her. I'm going to keep leaning on her until I feel like she's at an age where she can legitimately say she doesn't want to go.
Right.
Because right now, if I asked her every day, hey, you want to go to school? She'd be having a real delinquency problem. So you're like, you really like, you make kids do stuff. I took her duck hunting a couple weekends ago. It was a cold morning. And we get out there. And before it's even legal light, she's like, felt terrible. She's laying there crying about how cold her feet are. If my boy was doing that, I would have a very different attitude about it.
Right.
Than when she's crying. Her crying because she's cold, like, made me feel awful.
Right.
With my boy, I've been like, shh.
Suck it up.
But with her, I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
she's all cold now.
Yeah.
And then and so you really, there really is a difference. Yeah, there's a difference there, and it's not, of the people that buy hunting licenses in this country, 90% of the people that buy hunting, 90% are males.
Right.
Right. So 1 in 10 license holders is a woman, but then there's more women than men in the, slightly more women than men in the country. And there's a ton of ways of explaining it. We talked about it earlier with Neanderthals, or maybe the Neanderthals didn't have these like divided roles. But in all the hunter-gatherer cultures, it's very normal to see a division of labor here, and to have like that men were out hunting and women were not. There's a bunch of explanations for that. Like people were tied to being home to care for small children, and couldn't afford that risk. Right?
Do they vary? Are there some women that go out with the hunting parties?
If it is, the minute you say no, someone's going to point out to some variation. But
in your experience, you've done several of these trips to these remote jungles.
Oh yeah, but that's just such a small thing. I mean, you get rather than looking at personal experience, just like from kind of exploring the literature and reading about historic accounts and what people found and what people do. It is very much the norm. It is very much the norm that hunting was, patrilineal descent activity, and all these cultures you go to, like the cult of the hunter is like a male sort of cult. But the factors that made it that way, okay, you have to assume it comes from some kind of practical factor, right? The factors that made it that way aren't there anymore. And like I said, it's a difficult thing to unpack. If it winds up being that if I have 2 boys and 1 girl, if it winds up being that both boys become avid hunters and fishermen, and somehow my daughter does not, I'll probably view it as some bit of a personal failure, though I'll never know what really was going on. Like I said, it's hard to like unload it. I wish I could have 100 children, like 50 girls and 50 boys, and have a bigger sample size.